Make a Path presents Let's Talk. Dead Living, the feeding post. Alright Deadheads, as I promised, I do want to do video updates here on this channel for my book, Dead Living. Now, even though the book most likely won't be published until the fourth quarter of 2015, it's still nice to put a couple shorts out there, some teasers out there to kind of build up interest instead of just popping this thing out one day and it just gets lost in the shuffle. You know, this way at least people are anticipating it. Some of them that get interested in it are actually looking forward to the release, and that way when it's published, the release, it's something we can celebrate a little instead of me just saying, hey, you know what, I did this book out of nowhere and go check it out. You know, this way it kind of builds up the interest. You're going to know if you're interested in this piece. And as far as it becoming a comic, I don't want to get into all the details, but I am looking at that as an option. Now that that's out of the way, I did post recently the first look at Chapter 1 called The Feeding Post on the Dead Living Facebook page. Now, first thing first, for those of you who don't know, this is up and this is running. It's the Dead Living Facebook page. You can follow the book series. I do want to say two things. I don't post frequently on Dead Living, and I don't do it because I've forgotten about it or it's just a project that's, barely going on. I don't post because I don't want to spam you guys. If you guys are interested in the book series, follow that Facebook page and know 100% I'm not going to spam you every day with one little minute update. It might go 2 weeks, it might go a month. There will be one update a month or maybe even two when it starts picking up close to the publish date. But that's my main thing. I'm not neglecting it, I just choose not to spam you guys. I'm sure you're in enough Facebook groups the way it is. The last thing I want to do is spam you to death and then have you go, you know what, this is a joke, So that's why it might seem like I neglect it a little. On to the update I posted. Now, if you want to go ahead and read it word for word, I will tell you that is the rough draft, and I'm not putting the polished pieces out on the Facebook page because these are parts of the story that are going to be in the book. Now, if I put out the polished version with all the little details and some parts of the story that I did leave out that will be in the polished version, if I put it out word for word how it will be in the book, I just have this feeling that it just won't be as interesting. And I'm taking that from if I was the reader. I find that uninteresting. If I released the whole first chapter exactly how it is on Facebook, you're going to read it and be like, man, I'll just skip this. I already read that. But if I just released a rough draft on Facebook, give you guys an idea where the story's going and where it's headed, and then you read the polished version when it's finally published, I feel like that will be a lot more rewarding for a reader. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's just how I feel. I'm trying to look at it from the reader's perspective. But I've already talked long enough. Let's just get right into the first chapter, Feeding Post. You're going to start off, it's going to be like an open field. To the right is an old, worn out, one-floor building. The roof is caved in some. The door, surprisingly, it's still closed after all this time. The paint has faded away, chipped away. I mean, there's grass starting to grow around the damn thing. Next to it is a car, and what's left of that car is just basically the frame of the car, and it's almost hidden in weeds. That's how long it's been. We have just an ocean of weeds to the right. In front of us is a clearing that leads to some woods, and then the woods are going to circle around to the left of us. So that's our visual when we enter this world in Dead Living. That's the first thing we see. So we see the nature, and then we see the old world just taken over from the nature at this point. The first thing we focus on is a prisoner on the ground. His hands are bound, the flesh around his wrists are rubbed raw, he's got a sack over his head, we can hear mumbling so we know he's gagged, he's got dirty ass clothes, he's wearing jeans, the whole nine, and connected to his hands that are bound is a thicker rope, a guiding rope, and that's limp, it's on the ground, and about 15 feet ahead of it, on the opposite end of that rope, there's a horse. Now, on the horse is the character we know right now is just the rider. Now, the rider on the horse, he has this armor that's like Native American / a medieval knight. And his armor, I tried to describe it a little bit in the rough draft. Now, his outfit, he has like this rawhide leather. Basically, just tie it on, and it has that stitching. And so the rawhide will cover parts of his arms that are not the joints. And it's actually a pretty cool suit. And the idea is there's strips of rawhide that go down over the joints, but it's not, You know what I mean? It's not like a Batman suit. This thing is sectioned. Somebody did make this with their bare hands. And then the rider has a bandana and like a wool cloak with hood or whatever. We don't see the rider's face, and that's on purpose. We don't know who the rider is, and that's also on purpose. And that's why he is just called the rider. The prisoner, we actually will not find out who the prisoner is for a long time, and that's actually pretty important. And we won't find out who the rider is either for a while, you know. Now the rider gets off the horse, he snatches up his prisoner, he takes him down to the clearing. The prisoner, he's trying to mumble, definitely gagged at this point. We know he's gagged. He gets out to the middle of a clearing where there's a pole in the ground. It's solid, it might even be concreted into the ground, but this pole is not a coincidence, it's there for a reason. And he tosses the rider on the ground, he has him kneel, and he clips his arms to the top of the pole, and that's why I say it's there for a reason, because it all makes sense. The clips fit perfect with his bindings, and there's also one clip that he clips that's around his waist. You know what I mean? He is bound to this pole on his knees, waist clipped, wrists clipped. And then the rider pulls out his pistol that's on his thigh, and he looks over to the left, and we see a pile of bones that's in the grass. I mean, we only see a little bit of it. Obviously, whoever's bones those were, that person died a while ago. So then the rider tells the prisoner, listen, I'm going to fire a shot in the air. Don't worry, it's only to attract them. Now, for whatever reason he's telling the prisoner, it could be to torment him a little more. You know, that's probably why he tells the prisoner. So he fires the gunshot in the air, and we see a couple creepers from around the woods. At this point in the story, these particular individuals call them creepers, and that was actually thanks to my daughter. So he fires the gun in the air. We see the creepers by the wood line. They hear the noise, and they start making their way towards them. They're a little bit of a distance away. The rider kneels down. He tells the prisoner, you're not going to be able to see them coming, but you're going to hear them coming. And trust me, in your position, this is one of the most terrifying things to hear. You're going to hear their feet shuffle and drag, and it's going to get closer and closer. And finally, the last thing you're going to hear is your own screams as they eat you alive. And then the rider walks off. You have this prisoner, now he's starting to get nervous, you could tell. It's like he's going to have an anxiety attack. His breathing is fast and shallow. I mean, he's wiggling around, and now he notices, now he realizes he's fucked. This is happening. You know what I mean? It wasn't a bluff. It wasn't to scare him. He's not being left out in the wild, get out of the community. He's fucked. So then the rider goes up by his horse, he turns around to watch, and he's watching the creepers get closer. And one creeper in particular, he's just looking at it, disgusted and kind of curious, because it's so old. You can't tell if it had pants or shorts on, and its right leg looked like it was just bones. Just funny enough, as he's looking at the creeper takes a step, it buckles in on itself. It is pretty much all bone, and it just gives way, snaps inward, and the creeper goes down with a soft thud. So the rider sits back and prepares to watch. It's going to take the creepers a little bit to get to their future victim, but it will all be over soon, or so he thinks, because just then something fast moves out of the corner of his eye in the woods. He looks over, he grabs his sword, and he starts scanning the woods intently. At this moment in time, when he thinks the danger is in the woods, something is there, because the creepers don't hide. The creepers don't sneak. They're not tactical. Something is there. So he looks over in the woods, and he's staring hard at whatever could move. He thinks he sees something on a tree, and then that image he's staring at moves. It slips behind a tree. And it was something small. Was it an arm? Was it a shoulder? Was it a head? Something is behind that tree. He knows it now. And whatever it is camouflaged. It's smart, it's intelligent, and it's also hunting him. So he's staring into the woods. Just then, the wind that was blowing fresh air from the woods and nature into his face is now blowing towards his back. The wind has shifted, and it's also bringing a smell with it. And we're talking a vile smell. Not just a vile smell of something nasty. So at that moment, the rider knows that behind him are creepers. Not one, there's a lot of them. And that's where we end the story. That is the cliffhanger. That was just a nice introduction, because this way, the second part of the story that I'm going to release for the Feeding Post Part 2, and that is going to be the next teaser I'm going to post. That second part is going to be like the punch in the gut. The first part was the build-up. It was the wind back. And the second part is going to be that punch to the gut. Now, to answer one or two quick questions, I do want to tell you, yes, this does, and I'm going to be a little ambiguous here. This does take place in the future of the zombie apocalypse. I gave an example to a couple friends that did ask, and I said, yeah, pretend this takes place around 30 years. Now, I will tell you right now, it's not 30 years. It's somewhere around there. It could be 15, it could be 20, it could be 30. I'm letting you know right now, it is definitely longer than 10 years. Absolutely. You know what I mean? But it would just spoil something if I gave away when it is. So let's just say right now it's somewhere around 15 to 30 years into the future of the zombie apocalypse. And the next thing I could definitely tell you is, we know when we follow a main character, we know there's a really good chance they're not going to die right away. You know what I mean? The main character's probably going to last. Based off of that, and based off a lot of people can just say, yeah, you know what? Your main character's going to last. I'm doing something with the dead living. I'm giving everyone a look at what's coming up 15, 20 years into the future. The events that's going to happen at the feeding post is actually what's going to be the beginning and the end of this story. What I mean by that is the ending is done. I made sure I have an ending before I went into this thing, because that's the biggest thing I hate, when somebody goes into an awesome project, they don't have an ending, and then the ending is unsatisfactory. For me, as the creator, I am 100% satisfied with the ending. And what I mean by this is the events that's going to happen in the feeding post is going to take us back to day one of the outbreak. So yes, we will see the outbreak unfold, and we will follow the story all the way up until that fateful day on the hill at the feeding post. And then from there, the story's going to have a turn that's going to take us towards the end of the story. So if I could let you know in a timeline how it breaks down, we start somewhere around 15, 20 years into the apocalypse already. And then the story's going to flash back, so to speak, and follow groups of characters. Mainly follow our main character around with a few different groups. And it's going to lead up to this new world. From the new world to feeding post, without spoiling it, whatever's in those woods that he saw move fast out of the corner of his eye, whatever is in those woods is going to take our story and shift it to a different direction that's going to be heading towards the end of the story. But that might also play out over the next 2 or 3 years. So that catches us up with the very first update post with Dead Living. This is the second video. If you want to catch my first video about the zombie shields, click on this image. That will take you to the very first Dead Living video. Or you could go ahead and find the link below. Also, I'm going to make a Dead Living playlist for these update videos. On top of that, if you want to follow Dead Living on Facebook and catch the updates, this update actually was posted. You can read the feeding post part 1. You can read that on Facebook. I posted that a few days ago. So if you guys are interested in Dead Living, go ahead and like that Dead Living Facebook page. If you know anyone that's interested in this video, this topic, this content, go ahead and hit that share button. Give me a like if you like this idea. And also, if you like the idea, if you don't like the idea, however you feel, don't worry, I have thick skin. I have to thank you a lot for letting me bend your ear and giving me the time to make this little update video on my personal project. It actually means a lot to me. The support I got is tremendous. You guys are awesome. A huge thank you to every single one of you. Without you guys, without the interest, Dead Living would not be here. Thank you tremendously. Leave your opinions down below. Please, no suggestions or ideas. Legal reasons, those will not be entertained. And that is coming from my lawyer. So I do appreciate it. Appreciate the gesture. Thank you very much. But your opinions, I would love to hear them. Leave those down below. I'm done talking. It's your turn.
Subscribe now.